Here's the hard truth. If you're over 30, that breakfast you grab without even thinking about it? Yeah, it might be killing your metabolism. No matter how hungry you are, you might be sabotaging your health and setting yourself up for future problems. And I'm not talking about some just don't eat junk advice. I'm talking about 3 foods that are marketed as healthy, but in reality they're secretly ruining your mornings, slowing down your metabolism, and keeping you stuck in a cycle of weight gain. Now, before you get defensive, I get it. You might be thinking, but I've eaten this for years and I'm fine. That's where it gets tricky. The older we get, the more sensitive our bodies become to these foods. So, if you're ready to find out what these 3 foods are, why they're causing more harm than good, and what you should be eating instead, stick with me. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to avoid and how to start your day feeling more energized and less bloated. The problem with cereal. Let's dive right into it. Cereal. Yup, that crunchy bowl of goodness that's sitting in your pantry, marketed as the perfect breakfast. You've probably seen the ads. Whole grain, fortified with vitamins. A healthy start to your day. And it looks so harmless, doesn't it? But here's the problem. Most cereals are loaded with sugar. Let me give you an example. You know that healthy cereal you've been eating for years? The one that's supposedly rich in fiber and protein? Turns out that some of those brands contain up to 20 grams of sugar per serving. And guess what? That sugar spike might feel good at first. It gives you that quick energy boost. But that's short-lived. After that sugar rush comes the crash. And when you're over 30, that crash hits harder. So, what happens? Well, your body reacts by producing insulin, and it stores the excess sugar as fat. But it gets worse. You're not just putting on a few pounds, you're also taxing your pancreas, messing with your insulin sensitivity, and making your metabolism work overtime. It's a silent, slow buildup that can lead to insulin resistance, which, in the long run, is a major contributor to obesity and type 2 diabetes. I've seen this happen in real life, too. A friend of mine, let's call him Mike, swore by his healthy cereal every morning for years. He'd have his bowl, feel energized for a couple of hours, and then boom, mid-morning crash, hungry again, craving something else sugary to get that energy boost. Eventually, his doctor told him his insulin levels were elevated and he was at risk for diabetes. A simple fix? Cut out the sugary cereals and replace them with whole, nutrient-dense breakfasts. The bottom line, cereal might seem like a convenient, healthy choice, but when you're over 30, it's doing more harm than good. The pitfalls of yogurt. All right, next up, let's talk about yogurt. Now, I know what you're thinking, but yogurt's healthy, right? I mean, it's often labeled as low-fat, high in probiotics, and packed with calcium, and it can be to an extent. But there's a huge difference between what they market as healthy yogurt and what's actually good for you. Let me break this down. Most yogurts you find in the grocery store are loaded with added sugar. If you're grabbing that low-fat yogurt, you might be getting tricked. Here's the deal. When manufacturers remove the fat, they often replace it with sugar to make it taste better. And I'm not talking about just a little bit of sugar. Some of these flavored yogurts can have 20 to 30 grams of sugar per serving. That's about the same as eating a candy bar for breakfast. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but yogurt's good for digestion, right? Bye. And while yes, yogurt can help with your gut health if it contains live active cultures, the sugar content cancels out any of those benefits, especially when you're older. The more sugar you consume, the more your body has to work to process it. And at a certain age, your body starts to slow down in its ability to handle that excess sugar. That's when you start running into problems like bloating, sluggishness, and weight gain. Take my friend Sarah, for example. She used to swear by her daily bowl of strawberry-flavored yogurt. "It's my healthy breakfast," she'd say. But after a few months, Sarah noticed she was always feeling sluggish after breakfast. Her energy levels dipped, she was bloated, and she couldn't figure out why. It wasn't until she switched to a low-sugar, full-fat yogurt that she started feeling Better. Now she feels satisfied after breakfast and has a consistent energy boost throughout the day. Here's the key takeaway. When you're over 30, your body is not as forgiving as it once was. Yogurt may seem like a healthy option, but the added sugars in many commercial yogurts can do more harm than good. The issue with breakfast. Why we need to rethink what we eat. Let's get real for a second. Most of us have been told since we were kids that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. But here's the thing. Not all breakfasts are created equal. The truth is, a lot of the foods we've been taught to grab in the morning are actually working against us, especially as we get older. You've probably heard that old saying, eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper. But the problem? What we eat for breakfast is just as important as when we eat it. And most of us are making some critical mistakes that can leave us feeling tired, sluggish, and not to mention, adding on a few extra pounds. When we're younger, our metabolism is a bit more forgiving. But as we age, things start to slow down. And the way we fuel our bodies in the morning has a huge impact on how the rest of the day plays out. I'm talking about energy crashes, weight gain, and even an increase in inflammation. These are the kinds of issues that start popping up as we get older, issues that could have been prevented if we just rethought our breakfast choices. A couple of years ago, I was chatting with my friend Lisa. Lisa had always been one of those grab a quick breakfast types. She'd have a sugary granola bar, a cup of coffee, and boom, she was out the door. But after turning 40, she started noticing she was always sluggish by mid-morning, and her metabolism just wasn't what it used to be. She didn't realize that her quick breakfast wasn't really giving her body the nutrients it needed to start the day strong. Once she made a few simple changes, though, her energy levels skyrocketed, and the weight she'd gained over the years started to come off. Here's the key takeaway. Just because you're hungry in the morning doesn't mean your body's begging for the same old breakfast routine. You've got to rethink what you're eating if you want to feel good, stay lean, and keep your energy levels high as you age. The trouble with cereal. Now let's dive into a classic, cereal. You know, the go-to breakfast choice for millions. We've all had it, and for years, it's been marketed as a quick, healthy way to start your day.
It's easy, it's quick, and it feels like a solid choice, especially when it's paired with a little splash of milk, right? But here's the catch. Most cereals, especially the ones marketed as healthy, are loaded with sugar. And I'm not
talking about just a little bit here and there. Some cereals are packing up to 20 grams of sugar per serving. Let that sink in. 20 grams of sugar. That's like eating a couple of cookies with your breakfast. And if you're over 40, your body isn't as efficient at processing sugar anymore. It's a surefire way to spike your blood sugar, followed by an energy crash that'll leave you wanting more sugar before lunchtime. Let's be honest. If you're trying to stay healthy, maintain your weight, and keep your energy levels up, this is a terrible way to kickstart your day. I've seen this firsthand with my friend Dave. Dave is in his mid-40s, and for years, he swore by a bowl of cereal with his morning coffee. It was quick, it was easy, and to him, it felt like a good option. After all, the box said it was high in fiber, right? But after a few years, Dave started feeling sluggish, packing on some extra weight, and he couldn't figure out why. One day I mentioned to him that cereal might be the culprit. He laughed at first, but then he started looking at the sugar content in his cereal box. And guess what? He was eating over 25 grams of sugar before 9 a.m. Dave switched to a more balanced breakfast, and within weeks, he felt more energetic, and his weight began to stabilize. Cereal might be an easy breakfast, but it's not the right one if you want to keep your body and energy levels functioning optimally as you age. The sweet problem with fruit juice. All right, let's talk about something that seems healthy but can actually be a nightmare for your health. Fruit juice. It sounds great, doesn't it? A glass of fresh, sweet orange juice, maybe with a splash of something like pomegranate or apple juice to make it even more health-conscious. It's liquid. Sunshine, or so we think. But let me hit you with the reality. Fruit juice is essentially just liquid sugar. The problem is that when fruit is juiced, most of the fiber, the good stuff, gets thrown out, leaving you with a concentrated sugar bomb. That's why, even though fruit juice sounds like a healthy option, drinking it can spike your blood sugar levels just like soda. And when you're over 40, your body doesn't handle that sugar spike as well as it did when you were younger. Let me tell you about my buddy John. John loved his daily glass of orange juice in the morning. He thought he was doing his body a favor, getting all that vitamin C and a good boost of natural sugars to start his day. But after a few years of this routine, John noticed he had gained weight around his midsection. His energy levels were inconsistent, and he was always craving more sugar after breakfast. One day, I asked him if he'd ever thought about cutting out the juice. "I don't think it's that bad," he said. So I pulled up the sugar content on his favorite juice. 34 grams of sugar per serving. That's more than most sodas. John swapped his juice for a piece of whole fruit, and within a month, he saw a noticeable difference. His energy levels were steady, and the extra weight around his waist started to melt away. So, here's the bottom line. Fruit juice might seem like a healthy choice, but it's really just sugar water with no fiber to balance it out. Skip the juice and go for whole fruits instead. You'll get all the benefits without the sugar crash. The dangers of processed meats. Let's move on to something else that's often so easy to grab for breakfast: processed meats. Think bacon, sausage, and ham. Oh, don't get me wrong. Who doesn't love a good crispy bacon strip in the morning, right? But here's the thing. If you're trying to live a longer, healthier life, these processed meats might be doing you more harm than good. Processed meats, especially the kind often found in fast breakfast options, are loaded with sodium, unhealthy fats, and preservatives. The problem with processed meats is that they're packed with chemicals and additives that your body just doesn't need. Plus, these meats are usually high in saturated fat and cholesterol, which can mess with your heart health and your weight. I had a client, Lisa, who came to me a few months ago wanting to lose a bit of weight and feel more energized. Lisa had been eating bacon and eggs every single morning for years. She loved it. But over time, she noticed that not only was she gaining weight, but she also felt sluggish and bloated after her big breakfast. We ran some tests, and turns out her cholesterol levels were higher than normal. Her body wasn't processing the fats from the bacon as efficiently as it once did. Once Lisa made the shift to a healthier breakfast, lean protein, some fresh veggies, and a whole grain toast, she felt a world of difference. Not only did she start losing weight, but her cholesterol levels improved dramatically in just a few weeks. The truth is, while the occasional bacon strip might be a fun treat, it shouldn't be a daily breakfast go-to. The fats and preservatives in processed meats are simply too much for your body to handle every day, especially as you age. The surprising truth about bagels. Now, I'm about to go after another breakfast favorite: bagels. Yes, I said it. Bagels. We all love them, right? They're soft, chewy, and delicious. You can fill them with almost anything: cream cheese, avocado, peanut butter. The possibilities are endless. But here's the problem. Bagels are basically little doughy sugar bombs masquerading as a normal breakfast food. Most bagels are made from refined flour, which is essentially the same thing as white bread. When you eat refined flour, your body digests it quickly, which causes your blood sugar to spike. Sure, it feels great for the first 30 minutes after you eat it. You're on cloud 9 enjoying that carb rush. But here's the kicker. Within an hour, your blood sugar crashes. You feel sluggish, and you're hungry again, maybe even craving something sweet. It's a vicious cycle, and it's one that a lot of people fall into without even realizing. And I remember a conversation I had with Tom, a guy I met at a health seminar a few months ago. Tom was in his 50s, and he told me bagels were his go-to breakfast every single day. He would grab one on his way to work, slather on a little butter, and he felt great for the first few hours. But then, by mid-morning, he'd crash, feeling tired, irritable, and craving more carbs. Over time, his waistline started expanding, and he couldn't figure out why. After talking to him about the impact of refined carbs like bagels, he decided, to try switching to whole grain toast instead, along with some protein and healthy fats. Within 2 weeks, Tom was feeling better. His energy was stable throughout the day, and the weight around his midsection started to melt away. So, while bagels may seem harmless, they're actually loaded with simple carbs that'll cause your blood sugar to fluctuate. If you're looking to live longer and feel better as you age, it's time to swap the bagel for a healthier, more balanced breakfast that'll keep you full and energized all morning. The problem with sugary cereals. All right, now let's talk about something most of us grew up with: sugary cereals. The classic breakfast choice. You can almost taste the nostalgia, right? Frosted Flakes, Lucky Charms, and all those brightly colored boxes we used to grab as kids. But here's the reality check. Those sugary cereals that you might have thought were harmless, they're a total trap, especially as you get older. Packed with refined sugars and artificial additives, these cereals are pretty much empty calories. They give you a quick sugar rush, but nothing lasting. Your blood sugar spikes, then crashes. It's like riding a roller coaster of energy, except the ride ends with a sugar crash. I'll tell you a story about my buddy Steve. Steve's in his 40s, and for years his breakfast was a bowl of his favorite sugary cereal. 2 bowls, to be exact. He thought it was a decent option because it had a little bit of fiber in it and was quick and easy. But over time, Steve found himself gaining weight around his belly, even though he wasn't eating a ton of other junk. He felt sluggish in the mornings, tired in the afternoons, and even started having some digestive issues. It wasn't until we dug into his diet that we realized those 2 bowls of sugary cereal were sabotaging his mornings. The excess sugar was throwing his blood sugar out of whack, and the lack of protein or healthy fats was leaving him hungry just a couple of hours later. The hidden dangers of fruit juices. Here's a big one: fruit juices. Many people think they're a healthy option, especially those fresh, all-natural juices. After all, fruit is healthy, right? So how can juice from fruit be bad for you? Well, it turns out fruit juice can be one of the sneakiest things you're putting in your body. Even though fruit juice contains vitamins and antioxidants, the problem is that it's packed with sugar, and not the good kind. When you drink fruit juice, you're essentially consuming a concentrated amount of sugar without the fiber that comes with eating the whole fruit. And here's the kicker. When you drink juice, your body absorbs that sugar super quickly, causing your blood sugar to spike. Take Sarah, for example. Sarah's a busy mom in her late 30s. Every morning, she'd pour herself a big glass of orange juice, thinking it was a great way to start the day. But over time, she found herself struggling with weight gain, high energy fluctuations, and even some skin breakouts. Her energy levels were all over the place. The issue wasn't that Sarah was eating junk, but that she was drinking juice without realizing how much sugar she was consuming. 1 glass of orange juice can have as much sugar as a can of soda. Once Sarah swapped the juice for whole fruits, like an apple or some berries, and started adding more fiber to her breakfast, she felt a huge difference. Her energy was steady, her skin cleared up, and she started losing weight in a way that felt natural. Fruit juice, while tasty, just doesn't provide the full spectrum of nutrients that whole fruit does, and that makes all the difference when you're trying to eat healthy and live longer. The trap of pastries and donuts. Now let's talk about one of the most tempting breakfast choices out there: pastries and donuts. Who doesn't love the soft, sugary allure of a fresh donut or a warm pastry with that perfect glaze? They're easy, they're delicious, and let's be real, sometimes they're just impossible to resist. But here's the thing: pastries and donuts are typically loaded with refined sugar, unhealthy fats, and 0 nutritional value. They're the kind of food that gives you that instant gratification, that sugary high, but leaves you crashing just an hour later. And when you crash, what happens? You get hungry again. You start craving more sugar or carbs. It's a vicious cycle that not only messes with your energy levels but can lead to weight gain and inflammation over time. And, to make matters worse, most of these pastries are made with refined flour, which doesn't give you the same sustained energy or nutrients that whole grains do. I remember talking to a guy named Mark a while back. Mark was in his early 50s and had the habit of grabbing a donut and coffee every morning before work. For years, he thought he was just indulging in a little treat. But after gaining a noticeable amount of weight and experiencing low energy in the afternoons, Mark came to me for advice. We looked at his habits, and it became clear that those daily donuts were spiking his blood sugar and leaving him in a constant state of hunger. We switched him to a more balanced breakfast, something with protein, fiber, and healthy fats, and after just a couple of weeks, Mark had more energy, fewer cravings, and started shedding those extra pounds. Pastries and donuts may taste amazing, but they're not doing you any favors in the long run. So, next time you're standing at that pastry counter, eyeing the donuts, think twice. A quick sugar high isn't worth the crash in the long term. Damage. Choose something that's going to sustain your energy and help you feel better throughout the day.